Hello, Zero AD community. Boy, do I have a banger for y'all today. The day before yesterday, I got myself into a 4v4 with some really awesome mid-rated players, and boy, did we luck out, because this was the most balanced freaking game, and I think I'm coming around to a different opinion of 4v4s. I think I'm going to be participating in them a little bit more frequently, because they just, there's so much unpredictable shit that can go down when there's 8 players on the map. You know, like 2 players can be doing really bad on a team, but the other 2 can be, you know, slugging it out, and yeah, it can just, there's so many twists and turns that can potentially take place. And yeah, I'm really coming around to the 4v4. So team 1 is in the west. In the pink, we have JBC 1308 playing the, I believe this is the Athenians. Yes, it's the Athenians. They are getting the berry upgrade. I saw that they didn't have it for a second there, and I got a little nervous and pissed off because they got all these apple trees around their base, and you always know how I feel about a player whose base is full of foraging material and they don't get the berry upgrade, but I'm glad they got it. Let's see. We have a house here, and we have a farmstead. We also have a berry upgrade. Very good from Keko 2, Team 1. And this was the opposing team, so I should actually maybe be upset about all these berry upgrades that I'm seeing. In the west, we have, also in the west, we have JDZZ, rated 1273, playing as the, I believe, Spartans, yeah. Yes. Spartans. Okay, very interesting. Not only do they not have the berry upgrade, they don't have a farmstead. They're sending pretty much everybody to wood. Well, 5 women on berries, but they're already building their first farm when they've barely finished any of the berries. They have all these additional berries up here. They have an apple tree down here. They have an apple tree over here. And look at this. Look at all these berries. No berry upgrade, no farmstead. It grinds my gears. It must be my OCD, but this is such a huge opportunity to boom. They could literally not have to build farms until about maybe 8 or 9 minutes into this game. Save the wood that they would otherwise spend on the farming upgrade. Save the wood that they would otherwise spend on all these farms. They could literally, 7 minutes in, that's like when you're moving up to 15 people gathering wood, and literally everybody else is, being put to some other purpose when you have this many berries, So it's really a huge waste to not get the berry upgrade if you have all of this crazy stuff and take full advantage of it. Anyway, enough of my berry-related tangent. We have the Romans on the southern flank, rounding out Team 1, Tarzan, 1266. Now Team 2, we have yours truly, Zephyr. I did get the berry upgrade, even though I don't even have any accessible apple trees or additional berries in my base, which is wild because everybody on Team 1 did. But yeah, I still got that berry upgrade because, you know what? I think it's still worth it. Another Cushite, Pandravable, that's gonna be tough. Yes, berry upgrade, good. Like, why wouldn't you? And you have all these additional, oh my god, it's fucking berry galore up in Pandravable's base. They have their first barracks going up, and you can tell they're really taking advantage of those berries. They are amongst the top tier in terms of population compared to the rest of the players. In the northish, eastish, we have the Ptolemies being played by Long Sentence Name, 1403. They have also moved on to their farms, but they did not get the berry upgrade, but it's excusable for them because really all they had was this one extra apple tree, which is even debatable whether having your women walk out that far rather than just stay by the civic center and start with the farms when you're finished with these berries. I would still say the berry upgrade's worth it, but it really depends depends on your build order, and I do think Long Sentence Name knew what they were doing. We have the Marians on the flank. It's definitely risky when you have archer-type civilizations hanging out on the flanks, because when archers are your main unit, they're slow and they have low HP. They're very, very vulnerable. So it's risky business having the Marians be a civ on your flank. So, yeah, Lonsdale Fantasy is very, very heavily speccing into women to start this game out. They have actually not built any additional infantry yet. They only have their first 4, and they actually lost their cav. It was probably taken out scouting. They're building this wall of houses, which is a smart move because they are on the flank, and they should probably expect rushes, raids, and attacks more generally throughout this game. They have their first barracks going up, interestingly. Yeah, so they have this massive amounts of women. Honestly, they got very lucky, because if someone had decided to rush them with even a small number of cav as like 5, they could probably take out at least half of women before they could get them back to the Civic Center. Let's see, there's 33 of them, so even once they got to the Civic Center, they could only fit 20 in there. But they're finally building some infantry, and it was a moot point at the end of the day, luckily, because what just happened? I was not aware of this occurrence, but it appears that Lonsdale Fantasy has lost their Civic Center in minute 5 of the game. They have seemingly deliberately destroyed their own Civic Center, which is crazy. It definitely puts Team 2 at somewhat of a handicap when one of your flank players basically is completely taken out of the game during phase 1, because they let's really work this out. They can't build another Civ Center because they're still in phase 1. I think that's how that works. Or maybe you can build one if you lose it while you're still in phase 1, and you can build additional only in phase 2. Well, we'll see what happens, but yeah, losing a flank player that early on is very, very intense for Team 1. Yeah, they lost all of their territory as well. They lost all their buildings. Pondravable is sending them a little bit of metal. Anyway, back to Team 1 in the Northwest, we have JBC, who is coming in second in terms of population. Pondravable is housed currently at 90, but they are 13 ahead of the runner-up. Now Long Sentence Name is also pulled up to that approximately 80 mark. Keko 2 is yeah, they have a very, very strong fortification around this wood line. It's very well defended. They're working on a second barracks, which they will undoubtedly use to supplement the infantry, and there's also some women who are working on gathering wood over here, and they will probably also send some units over to the mineral resources, because it's getting to be about that point in the game where those start to become useful. A little further south, we have JDZZ. So between Lonsdale Fantasy and JDZZ, these are, I think, the 2 lesser experienced players in the game. However, JDZZ at least still has their Civic Center. However, they are a raging mess, I have to admit. It's, yeah, like, there's no reason that they shouldn't have a farmstead by these berries, but, yeah, and for that matter, they don't need any of these fields. They could have all of their women on berries who are currently gathering food. These women, I mean, if they had a farmstead, they would be gathering food at twice or faster the rate of the farming ones over here, but because they're walking such a long distance, they're probably gathering it even more slowly. They also don't have a storehouse by this wood line. They only have 2, I guess 3 infantry gathering wood from there, and they're walking it all the way back to the Civ Center. JDZZ is a bit of a hot mess, I have to say. Meanwhile, for contrast, we have Tarzan, who has not made it up to Phase 2 yet, but is building a very compact, building up their base in a very compact way. They have a tight ring of houses plus this barracks, which is providing very strong protection for their civic center, just in case anybody does come over from the east and attempt a rush. It's very good because they are playing on the flank. Excellent. Meanwhile, they have this wood line populated with 12 skirmishers in the north, 10 women in the south. This is not what I would do. If you're going to separate the women onto a separate wood line, you would want that wood line to be over here, or, you know, yeah, pretty much over here would be the only viable option, and even then, it would be very, very easy for an enemy's cav like this one, who is lurking and now probably knows the location of those women. Maybe, we don't really know. It would be very easy, even if the women were back here, to have the cav just loop around and take them all out, and with the skirmishers completely isolated from the women up here, it's, yeah, it would be their doom for sure, instantly. So we do have a lot of players getting up to the town phase. We have about half, but mostly Team 2 has made it to the town phase at this point. Promptly, I am building my mercenary camp. You guys know my build order. That's always the first Phase 2 building that I produce, and then I use the units from this building to build all of my other Phase 2 buildings along with houses, while my regular archers and other units are devoted to gathering resources. Alright, we also have the other Kushite player, Pendravable, just east of me, and they are, wow, they have really shot ahead in terms of population. They're up to about 145, which is 15 higher than the runner-up, but the runner-up is on Team 1, so we are looking at a pretty balanced game as of yet. Yeah, so my strategy when I play with the Kushites is very, very atypical. Generally speaking, I will only produce 1 barracks throughout the extent of the entire game, and I'll produce a mercenary camp in Phase 2. And, yeah, despite playing as the same civ as me, Pendravable has a much more traditional way of going about things. They are about midway through Phase 2, and they have 4 barracks, all producing units. Their metal mines are fully populated with archers. They are not relying on swordsmen like I do. They are relying on a combination of pikemen and, I guess, also spearmen? No, sorry, slingers. Very interesting. The Kushites get slingers. Okay, wow, so they researched the tech that allows them to grab, what do you call it, from houses. Sorry, not from houses, to train champions from the barracks. I don't see where those slingers could possibly be coming from, though. I don't think the Kushites have slingers. It might have been another player's slingers that I was mistaking for Pendrabables. In the east, Long Sentence name is kind of hanging back around the 130 range of population, same as me. And we do have a rebuilt civic center in the north from Lonsdale Fantasy, I can only guess that civic center self-destruction that we witnessed right before our eyes, despite our disbelief, was, I guess, an accident. You know, I can't knock it. I have had one game where I literally it was a 2v2 and my team was about to attack. We were very much in the lead. Actually, I had already attacked and I was doing great. I was about to take one of the opponent's civic centers, and I literally I was trying to knock down their buildings that I had stolen from them. I accidentally killed my entire army all at once. So, you know, it's an easy mistake to make. Things are definitely getting dangerously intimate on this northern flank between JBC in the northwest on Team 1 and Lonsdale Fantasy. In the northeast, they are sharing a wood line, and at this point, the infantry are getting close enough to one another that they automatically are stopping their resource gathering and attacking. We have a stone tower from JBC, far superior to Lonsdale Fantasy's sentry tower, and Lonsdale Fantasy 90, JBC more than double that. Lonsdale is, if JBC just goes for it, he could probably take Lonsdale out of the game. The good thing is he's not really aware of Lonsdale's total population. He doesn't know that it's less than half of his. So there's a chance that he will hang back long enough for an ally to come help out Lonsdale, and Long Sentence Dame still isn't going to be able to do much to match up against JBC, who has already reached almost max pop. They'll probably be the first in the game to get there. But JBC is not ready to attack yet. Interestingly, Lonsdale is confident enough that they feel like they can send a squad of infantry into JBC's territory. Interestingly, the kills are about even, but this stone tower is, it's best to be avoided. If I were Lonsdale, I would abandon this wood line and go try and gather resources, maybe down here. Luckily, we do have a military colony going up just south of Lonsdale's territory from Long Sentence Name, so this will be useful in defending that position. In the south, we have a lot of JDZZ's infantry moving into Tarzan's territory, which could mean that they're ready to attack. They are knocking out troops on... We're having a similar situation on the southern flank with the shared wood line. I decided to gather up, I think, pretty much all of my infantry units and, abandon this wood line and instead take additional territory and try to gain control of the center of the map for my team. So rather than try and fight this battle, even though I probably have a very good chance of winning it, ultimately, I would have won if it was just a matter of the soldiers around the wood line, but if it was a matter of us going head-to-head, well, I could have won that as well, if you go by just population numbers. But I decided for me personally, being that I only build one barracks and one mercenary colony until end of phase 2, beginning of phase 3, when I build a bunch of stables. Even though I had the numbers, point being, I definitely would not have been able to reinforce once my troops started dying. So, yeah, it just wasn't time to engage in that fight yet. So far, nothing has really popped off quite yet. What we do have is a very large mass of, what do you call it? A very large mass of archers and pikemen inside of my territory. That second civ center did go up, and I am trying to get as many stables built as I can to kind of adjoin the new civic center with my old one. And yeah, so I would say of Pundravabal's troop balance, I would say it is actually very unbalanced. Archers are your main damage-doing units, and pikemen are more for absorbing damage, being a meat shield. So a handful of pikemen are going to absorb a lot of damage, but if you only have 17 archers, these 40 pikemen, will provide a shield for quite a while, and it'll take a while to actually plow through them. But the 17 archers aren't really going to be able to get much damage done during that time because there's such a small number of them, and it gives your opponent time to maybe circle around with cav and circumvent the pikemen and take out the small amount of vulnerable archers that you do have. So that being said, when you add all of my units into the mix, things balance out a little bit. But it looks like Pundrabable has decided. I am going to pause for a moment and mess with the graphics a little bit because I think they're turned up a little bit too high. We're definitely starting to see some lag here. Okay, hopefully that did the trick. So, yeah, right now we have a kind of small contingent of JDZZ's forces because JDZZ does not have a very high population to begin with, ready to help Tarzan defend against both myself and Pundrababal. But overall, me and Pundrababal, I need to find a shorter way of saying that. I'll just call him Pan. P. Let's go with P. Me and P have a much larger amount of troops, and I now am getting all of those stables built. As far as food and wood go, I have a pretty decent surplus of that as well. So between the stables and the surplus food and wood, I'm going to be able to reinforce as my troops get taken out. Let's take a look at upgrades while this fight pops off. Tarzan definitely has a good amount. I have the same ones, just the Phase 1 upgrade. Pundrababal has those plus some of the Phase 2 upgrades as well. So I would say Team 2 definitely has the advantage when it comes to this engagement, and you can see that bearing out in terms of the kill-death ratio. Ours is slowly creeping up. Theirs is up to 1.8, mine 1.2, but it did just drop down a little, which means they're losing units. Let's see, in terms of reinforcing, we see at least 3 barracks here, and it looks like a very large amount of, 6 stables on the part of Tarzan. So Tarzan shouldn't have much of a problem reinforcing. They also have a very large surplus of food and wood. But as it is, me and P are very much on the offensive, and I managed to take an arsenal, which conveniently gets absorbed into my territory. Meanwhile, we have a very large force from JBZ attempting to make inroads into Lonsdale's territory. Lonsdale has now lost 61 units trying to defend themselves, and they're down to 132. They did manage to shoot up to, I guess, about 200, and I noticed, I guess, max pop is, they're Marian, so they get the extra 20. Yeah, they did manage to get up to about max pop before they got attacked, which is good because they had a serious disadvantage, what with losing that civic center very early on. In the south, myself and P are still continuing to flood into Tarzan's territory. I was attempting to take over this barracks, but it looks like I have turned my troops around. As far as kill-death ratio, we're still looking pretty good. P's is up to 2.6. Mine is about to reach 2. Yeah, Tarzan is not really doing that well to defend against this. JD is not able to provide that much help in their attempts to do so. They've lost 51 units and only managed to take out 9 of ours. Tarzan has already lost 135, but they have managed to take out 75, which is not insignificant. And now we have blue. Okay, now we have Keko, who is by far the most advanced player on Team 1, joining in this fight. So now it is 3 versus 1. And myself and Punjababal are already pretty weakened from our attack. And Keko has some Skiratai commandos. A really good balance of, once again, I would say the skirmishers should be higher in number, but it's really a nitpick at this point. They have their hero cavalry swordsmen, and they are now in my territory. I don't really create an airtight seal around my fields like a lot of players do, and this is a situation where I could have potentially paid for that, but I was able to catch up to Keko's troops, and what he did here was actually very, very smart. He completely pulled my troops and Punjababal's away from the front line, except for the fact that he did not. He pulled about half of mine. The good thing is I still have a very large contingent of archers and cav right up on the front line, keeping the heat on Tarzan, who is pretty much defenseless, down to only 70 pop, and I am building a large Kushite temple of Amun on their base next to Tarzan's temple that I already stole. Meanwhile, Keko is running through Punjababal's territory, taking no prisoners in the process, luring Punjababal away from the front line, taking the heat off Tarzan, but I am trying to sustain that. Punjababal really has no choice but to chase these units down, and he does have a lot of these champion axemen who are extremely powerful units who are fast enough to chase these units down, who are marauding deep behind enemy lines and have actually reached the far east edge of the map, and they said king me when they got there. Meanwhile, in the north, the assault is very much moving in the opposite direction. JBC is not letting the heat off of Lonsdale. Longsendon's name is doing their best to attempt to defend and to actually put some heat onto JBC with these siege weapons, trying to throw cannonballs across the front line. And I'm not actually entirely sure what these catapults are aiming for at the moment. Maybe these rams who are coming into Lonsdale's territory. And okay, so JBC has stolen Lonsdale's stone tower and temple, which is on their front line. and they have 4, now 3, but still a significant number of rams progressing into Lonsdale's territory, really giving them a hard time. And speaking of a hard time, the assault that I was trying to, using the arsenal that I captured from Tarzan, I was trying to build rams and send them in to deliver the killing blow. But I wasn't able to get very far before Keko sent in a huge amount of cavalry. It looks like they are skirmisher cavalry, or they could be, I'm actually not sure. Roman cavalry might be spear cav, but yeah, that ram was not able to penetrate this really effective wall of houses. And my KD has now dropped all the way down to 1.1 because, yeah, they must be Roman, they must be spear cav, because, yeah, my greatest weak point is spears and pikes of any kind, because I have, the only units that I generally have to easily reinforce in the late game are cav. And, yeah, it's very easy for those cav to be taken out by the Roman spear cav. JDZZ is sending a lot of resources to Tarzan, who currently has a breath of fresh air, has a moment to attempt to rebuild down from 57 pop that he's been reduced to. Meanwhile, Keko is operating largely from this military colony, which is looming dangerously just outside of my and P's base, and rams are being sent in one after the other into my territory, and I've now lost my second civic center, which is not the most tragic thing because I didn't lose loyalty on any buildings. I still was able to keep all of my stables despite having lost that civic center. The only thing that really came of it is the center of the map, and a lot of these metal mines, which are actually very strategically important, are no longer within the scope of my territory. But thankfully, Punjababal is still around max population and is able to defend my stables and my territory from being taken any further by Keko. However, Keko's rams are pretty much unstoppable at this point because, let's see, my wood is down to the absolute wire. I started the battle with a surplus, but I neglected to keep enough infantry on woodcutting duty to maintain that surplus. And because of that, I'm not really able to train many units at all, and I'm kind of stuck down here at 105. Meanwhile, Punjababal pretty much, in the beginning, they mostly had these pikemen, but now in the late game, it seems like they've switched to pretty much only training archers for 99% of their units, which meant that they were not able to do anything about this ram as it smashed down 2 of my stables. I'm attempting to chase it down with some sword cav that just popped out of those stables, but they got too close to the military colony, and I had to turn them around. Thankfully, Punjababal is at max population, and they are gathering wood. Interestingly, they're able to drop the wood off at my storehouse. I think there's possibly an upgrade that allows you to do that, to drop resources off at allies' buildings, which I think is very useful, as we just saw demonstrated, because the front line is really here on the flank, and Punjababal wants to keep the majority of their forces by that front line so that they're able to do what they're doing now, which is attempt to take over this army camp. However, there's really not a lot they can do. Well, I take that back. They are now coming in hot with the Rams, and they are about to take possession. Yes, they have now officially taken possession of Keko's military camp, which has taken a lot of heat off of our efforts in the south, because we pretty much had Tarzan on the ropes. JDZ was not really that built up at all in terms of his population, so he wasn't able to provide that much help. It was really Keko 2 single-handedly doing a lot of the work in defending the southern flank, and this military colony was immensely helpful for him in doing so. So the fact that we were able to claim it for ourselves is a huge victory. However, now JD is actually becoming somewhat of a threat. Not as much as their population would suggest, however, because they have neglected to get any military upgrades, which is going to cause a lot of problems for them if they attempt to use the infantry that they've been training, the 100 or so soldiers. So after losing the Civic Center, I thought it was much more important to build a fort that would get me a lot further. It would get me a hero and a very strong defensible position on the front line in the southern flank. And yeah, at a certain point, I had lost control of this arsenal, which I was using to assault Tarzan with, and I've now gotten it back. However, I am going to lose it if I don't get this fort built relatively quick, but I think the fort's going to go up in time for me to retain possession of the arsenal. Meanwhile, Keko has turned his attention to the north, it looks like, and he has decided to go straight in for Long Sentence Name. I don't know how much harm he's really going to be able to do. Certainly he'll be able to clear this metal mine out, and he may be able to take down this hero if he's not, if Long Sentence Name is not entirely careful. Because Keko had been forced to defend the southern flank for so much of the game so far, JBC on his own was left to push into the northern flank, and that is why Lonsdale's territory has stood strong for as long as it has, because despite the fact that JBC is probably stronger than Long Sentence and Lonsdale individually, put together, it's been a pretty even match. But now we do see a lot of troop movement from Keko in the north. We might see him joining JBC and attempting to push on the northern flank. However, it's more likely that he's going to need to help out in the south, because my population has been built up almost fully at this point, and I'm once again attempting to make inroads into Tarzan's territory. However, Tarzan's main composition of infantry is pretty much only is spearmen, and I pretty much have only calves, so I'm not really going, even though my numbers are significantly higher than Tarzan's, I'm not going to really be able to successfully go hand-to-hand with his troops, because the spearmen would be able to take out my cav even if I had like double the numbers, which I don't even have close to that. So yeah, I'm trying I'm trying to attack him anyway. I'm not sure where he marched those spearmen off to. Okay, it looks like he has actually built a second civic center up by the northern flank, so he is going to maybe attempt to help JBC continue pushing into Lonsdale's territory. Miraculously, Lonsdale still has retained his civic center and the vast majority of his population, whereas JBC is the one who has taken a really large hit in the north. Despite the fact that his kill death is higher, it's because he's been fighting off both Lonsdale and Long Sentence together. He has not managed to take down this civic center quite yet, but it may very well go down very shortly. Not quite yet though, because Lonsdale was able to use his swordsman to take down the catapult that was attacking it. If I were Lonsdale, I have a large surplus of food, so I would use these women to repair this civic center. And, okay, we now have another huge wave of pikemen coming in from JBC's territory into Lonsdale's. They were able to quickly dispatch those swordsmen. Right now, I don't see any viable defense against these pikemen. There's 56 of them. Meanwhile, like Lonsdale is kind of frazzled because he put 15 women onto stone, and women can only mine stone at, I think, about like 15% the rate of infantry. So either it was a mistake or he's not aware that women have that mining debuff. But yeah, how could I blame him when he's been facing sustained attacks from JBC constantly for this entire game? Meanwhile, I have a really large contingent of forces gathered up, 92 of them right on the southern flank, and plus my hero, my charioteer, but I haven't really been able to do much with them just because of the fact that they're sword cav and spear cav, so none of them are ranged except for my hero, and I really have been trying to avoid going hand to hand with the spearmen and the pikemen at all costs. Meanwhile, Punjababal has actually dropped down to about half of max pop. I missed the confrontation in which that took place. It couldn't have been against Tarzan because Tarzan is doing very well in terms of population. Unfortunately, I've been sitting at or around max pop for a while, and I've been kind of a sitting duck. I really should have brought this large number of cav up into the battles that are taking place further north, rather than just having them sit around outside of Tarzan's, having them sit around on the southern flank. This is a huge mistake on my part. I think I got stir crazy and I just decided to ram all of my cav right into a huge wall of 50 pikemen. I don't know why I did this, but my KD is probably about to drop below 1 for the first time in this game. Tragic mistake on my part. There are a million things I could have done with those cav, and they would have been better than just slamming them into a gigantic, tightly packed group of spearmen. Pikemen. I was attempting to provide a diversion so that the ram that I had built could sneak into this area and bring down Tarzan's civic center, but against those spearmen, the cav really have like maybe 10 seconds to provide a distraction, and the price of that distraction is pretty much losing all of them and barely killing any of the spearmen. And yeah, he was able to, pikeman, I should say, he was able to quickly take out that ram. It's really, I should have waited for reinforcements or maybe built some more temples, which I couldn't have done because I didn't have the stone really. Well, I guess I could have, but I could have built more temples to train infantry champions out of. That would have been an effective way of handling these, I mean, not particularly effective because I don't really have access to the metal that would be necessary to take those pikemen on, to train the champion infantry required to do that. What I really should have done was probably traveled north a little bit, built another civic center in this large open area of the map where there are a ton of metal mines just sitting around. Securing access to that metal really would have put my team in a much better position than just attempting solo to, just go head on, brashly into Tarzan's territory and lose a bunch of valuable cav. Luckily, I was able to rebuild pretty quickly. Hopefully, I have some units at least consistently gathering wood. I really don't. I have 3. I should have left a lot more units on the wood lines because 3.3k wood is not a huge surplus at all this late into any game. So it looks like there is some movement in the north. They've given up on trying to take Lonsdale's Civ Center. They've just moved right past it, it looks like. Keko attempting to move in on Long Sentence Name, but really not too much avail. Long Sentence Name was able to repel him a really large amount of cab in consort with Pandravabal, who is currently kind of working this northern area of the map, trying to defend Lonsdale, who has been the most vulnerable area, the most vulnerable player in this entire game. And speaking of which, his civic center did finally go down. And, meanwhile, in the south, I'm continuing to push into Tarzan's territory, and it looks like he has run out of help. They, the team 1 has, really put all of their firepower into finally knocking down Lonsdale's civic center, but in doing so, Keko neglected to do what he had done earlier in the game, which was come to the rescue in the south and defend this flank. And because JDZ and Tarzan were left to defend this flank on their own, I was able to take this civic center. So now I have control of pretty much the entire south of the map. I think they were attempting to take it back, and I just decided to knock it down at that point. However, so I knocked down Tarzan's initial civic center. However, he still has this other one in the center of the map, which is, not very well defended, to be honest, and there's not really a whole lot of infrastructure around it. There are these 3 barracks, but other than that, it's mostly isolated, save for a few houses and a storehouse. But Tarzan is doing the smart thing, and he's using this civic center to gather wood. And you know what? I take that back. Probably not very smart, considering he has 5.8k wood. 4k metal, but you really can never have too much metal. I would at least have this metal mine fully occupied with 12 units on it. Meantime, I'm sweeping up the remaining buildings in the south here, I did take control of, I took control of what was previously Tarzan's market, but it is going to fall out of my... It's going to go to Gaia, I think, which is fine. The point is Tarzan not having a market and not being able to trade vital resources. However, I didn't know this at the time, but Tarzan is, more than almost anyone in the game, set on all resources, food, wood. The only thing is Tarzan is going to actually run out of food very quickly. He's attempting to build up a whole new farming infrastructure around this second civic center. He's thinking fast, but really the smart thing to do would be to send all the women that he's building to this really plentiful crop of berries and a convenient apple tree placed right next to them. He would be able to gather food from there significantly faster, and all he would need would be a farmstead, but instead he's trying to build up fields, which is going to take an extremely long time and replenish his food at a very slow rate. Meanwhile, I've taken out almost all of his territory in the south. Let's see what's going on up north. Keko is, I guess, running a lot of troops away from these pikemen of long sentence. And, okay, Lonsdale has rebuilt. Lonsdale, this northern flank has held shockingly well throughout this entire game. The Civic Center went down ever so briefly, but it right back up, and Lonsdale pretty much has control of all of their original all of the buildings that they had from the start. They still have control over. But we do see a large battle happening over here. JBC is fighting off, well, it's not that large of a battle. It's pretty much just Long Sentence Name has some troops who are completely surrounded and being taken out by, I think, 3 different players. Yeah, Keko, JBC, and Tarzan are all finishing them off, but this is a very dangerous... Oh, okay, so we also have Pendrava fighting in this section too, alongside Long Sentence Name, but the two of them are severely overwhelmed by the sheer numbers possessed by JBC, Keko, and Tarzan put together, and they are forced to retreat. And we now have all 3 of those players once again marching across this northern flank and making yet another attempt to breach it, but this time with all 3 of their armies united together. It's going to be very hard for them to defend this position. However, we do have 3 players defending as well. I think their numbers just aren't quite as high. Pendrava is down to 145. Lonsdale is almost max pop. Long Sentence is 170. Yeah, I think the threat here is the level to which Team 1's troops are concentrated into one area. So despite the fact that Team 1 has an overall lower population, at the moment, their forces are extremely concentrated. Particularly Keko 2 has a ridiculous amount of units here, particularly a lot of cav. I think these are even champion cavalry, along with a hero. So, yeah, Keko 2's cavalry force here is nearly unstoppable, and he is joined by units from both Tarzan and JBC. However, JDZ, it's funny that there's JBC and JDZ. JDZ has resigned because, after taking down, what do you call it? After taking down Tarzan's initial base, I continued, moving in a clockwise direction, and I was arriving on, JDZ's doorstep, and, his his three teammates were kind of all busying themselves, pushing into the northern flank, trying to take down, what do you call it? Trying to take down, this base, once again, trying to take down Lonsdale's base. And yeah, JDZ was kind of left alone in the south to fend for himself against me. And yeah, he wasn't feeling that. He wasn't feeling his odds there. And yeah, he decided to resign. However, it's still, you know, it's still a game. We have, okay, so now that, JDZ was out of the game, I decided I would finally go for, this second base that, Tarzan had built in the center of the map, and I would try to take, I was able to take down, a few houses and all three of his barracks, so I definitely completely crippled any ability that Tarzan had to reinforce and, frankly, to be of any assistance, in terms of the fighting that, that is still going on up on the northern flank. The battle, the game-long battle for, Lonsdale's territory that has just held strong, this entire time. But yeah, Keko sent a massive wave of, these, I think, consular bodyguards, these champion cavalry. I think they're sword cavalry, but yeah, they're way stronger than my basic bitch cavalry. Actually, that's not true at all. 24 of my cav are, spear cav, which are also champions, and I think would have the edge in a one-to-one matchup against those, champion sword cavalry. Because spears do, in terms of cavalry, I was going to say spears beat swords, but swords beat spears when it comes to infantry, but spears beat cavalry as a whole. So yeah, I am hacking away at, this civic center. I have 2 rams as well, and it looks like I'm going to be able to grab it. It's definitely going to be close, but yes. So, Tarzan's second and final civic center has now fallen into my possession and has now fallen into ruin. I would have garrisoned it and, attempted to hold that position, but I had to destroy it to the point of being ungarrisonable in order to actually so I did not have the numbers, I don't think, in this matchup. And I think I probably tested it out. I think I began trying to fight those cav for a minute. And, I was losing, so I decided to retreat instead. I got chased back to my base. But yeah, not before, pretty much fully dispatching, Tarzan from the game once and for all, which was kind of my, role in this game from the start. But yeah, I thought that joining my infantry up with my cav, and luring his cav back to my base and hitting them with everything would do the trick. But then he caught up with his infantry, and you're going to see my units and my kill-death ratio start to drop like a stone in the river. And yeah, this really sent a chill up my spine because, yeah, just seeing my KD drop that quick and seeing my population, more importantly, drop to pretty much 100 in a matter of seconds, was spooky, you know, because we had been doing so well up until this point. And yeah, I was really afraid that there was a chance that the tables would be turned at this point and the game would swing in Team 1's favor, despite the fact that they did lose a player. Keko, quite frankly, Keko chose skirmisher and cavalry. Force is extremely intimidating between the 42 champion sword cav and the hero cavalry swordsman, which I'm sure grants a crazy buff. Let's see. Oh, okay, so defense. I mean, it's a defensive buff, but that's not to knock it. +1 crush, hack, and pierce resistance for humans and structures. So I'm assuming that includes all units. Humans is a very weird way of putting it, because there is a human on top of the horse, but does that include cav? It's not really clear. But yeah, that hero buff definitely went towards him being able to overwhelm my my cav and archers put together and pretty much knock them all out. However, I do have enough food and wood to very swiftly get myself back up to max pop, which I'm doing currently. Something told me to train some skirmisher cav, just because I think I thought that he had spear cav, maybe, and I wanted to keep my distance, or maybe I think he also did have either spearmen or pikemen, and I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want my cav to have to get all the way up to the units they were attacking in order to do damage, so I decided to bolster... Yeah, not bolster, to, for my, entire, cavalry, to consist of skirmisher cavalry. So, yeah, Keko 2 has now decided to abandon the northern flank, shockingly. Well, I mean, it's not that shocking at this point. It seems pretty obvious that, Long Sentence, Lonsdale, and Pendravabal, between the three of them, were going to defend that flank with everything in their power. So, yeah, I went to go try to get Pendravabal out of a very sticky situation that they were in. And, yeah, I sent my cav right into... to hit Keko and prevent him from... continuing this assault on P's base, but yeah, my cav started to drop like flies, so I turned them around so I could maybe wait for some reinforcements and hit him overall with a larger number of units, because I felt like with the only 23 that I had left, if I tried to fight these 54, 38 of which are cavalry champion swordsmen, he would pretty much take out all of those units without really doing any damage. But one of my teammates at that point, I think it was Long Sentence, said, "Don't run away." And I think that's because Long Sentence was just in that moment showing up to the battle with this huge contingent of pikemen, who are really the miracle that that would be needed to take out Keko's cav. Unfortunately, I really don't know what I'm doing here. I really should be sending these cav directly in to attack Keko alongside the pikemen, but I was a little bit late to the party. All the pikemen were gone by the time my cav ran up to the to Kiko's cav. Not the best play on my part, I gotta say. I think I just didn't notice that Long Sentence had that large contingent of pikemen who were in the battle, who would kind of protect my, who would kind of provide a meat shield for my skirmisher cav to, keep hitting, Keko. And by the time I did realize that, it was already kind of too late. But yeah, I definitely trained a lot more. And at this point, yeah, somehow Keko managed to build this military colony just inches away from P's base. And yeah, I was instructed by either P or Long Sentence not to fight by the temple of P's that Keko had taken possession of, and the military colony, which is sending out arrows. P told me to go fight Keko by his fort, by P's fort. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really anything motivating Keko to follow me over to the fort. So I began to re-engage with Keko by these very dangerous buildings. At this point, I needed to ask for some wood to continue reinforcing, because I was definitely getting down to the nitty-gritty. And yeah, I did manage to get Keko's units to follow me over to this fort, which is garrisoned with 14 infantry, who definitely sent out a nice little flurry of arrows in the small amounts of time that Keko was in range of it. Interestingly, in the north, JBC is pretty much just back to trying to build themselves back up, because yeah, they really took a beating during all the fighting that was taking place. And yeah, with Keko focused on attempting pretty much a last-ditch effort to take down the P's base deep beyond the front line, JBC really didn't have a anyone to back him up in terms of trying to breach that northern flank again, and they couldn't even do it with 3 players. So I doubt JBC was really considering trying it on his own. So it seems like yeah, Keko is still doing really well in terms of resources, although Keko, now that I'm mentioning it, is pretty much completely out of metal. He does have this metal mine pretty much fully depleted by his base. I mean, he has access to a lot of different metal mines, but he didn't, he didn't occupy them in the necessary way that he would have needed to continuously reinforce with more of these consular bodyguards during this battle. So he still could, in theory, build a lot more regular cab, but we just pretty much finished off the vast majority of his the vast majority of his champion cav, and without those, he didn't really stand much of a chance. Interestingly, though, it was JBC who resigned. It's just so funny because he was very much on the offense when he resigned. He had 2 catapults slinging stone into these very, very powerful Marian walls that were now erected in the north, making the impossible to breach flank all the more daunting. And I think it was probably a matter of fatigue that caused him to resign just now. He wasn't really in particularly dire straits. Nor was Keko, to be honest. Neither of their bases were getting invaded or anything like that. In fact, Keko was on the offensive, but still is quite frankly. But he really is just running out of steam. And he has 4 players to contend with, although, to be completely honest, it's a bit odd in the whole, I guess, last 10 minutes or so of this game. Lonsdale hasn't really done much to aid in the battle, even though he wasn't. I guess he wanted to be safe and keep all of his troops kind of up around the general area of his base, because he was, he was pretty traumatized from getting pummeled for this entire freaking game almost non-stop until this very end phase. So yeah, I would definitely understand him not wanting to migrate south and defend P's base when myself and Long Sentence were doing a fine job on our own. Yeah, he is really fighting till the bitter end. He has his last 10 consular bodyguards, but they are on about 50% health and dropping 7 left. He still has his valiant sword cav hero who has lasted until the bitter end. And shockingly, in terms of this engagement, Keko is still, at this late date, coming out on top, knocking down every wave that attempts to bring him to his knees. We have 2 rams of Pandravals. Oh, okay. Interestingly, those rams popped out when, okay, I guess he was attempting to take down this military colony, but these sword cav were about to take out the rams, so he turned them around and garrisoned them in the arsenal until such a time as there aren't these infantry threatening to take out the rams. But I think, yeah, wow. It's remarkable how, wow. Well, we'll talk about it when he finally resigns, but it's really remarkable, Keko's performance during this game. It's actually kind of mind-blowing, how long he's managed to continue this fucking pummeling of our team and continue mowing down our troops, despite the fact that he has 4 players all pinned up against him. It's really something to marvel at. Like, yeah, it's like, how do you even explain that, to be honest? Like, I've watched the whole thing nonstop, and it's really hard to explain how he's managed to last this long. He's down to 22 spearmen, and yeah, there's still 22 spearmen and a handful of skirms. 2 healers. He doesn't have the temple upgrades, honestly. No, he doesn't have the temple upgrades. I was gonna say, is it the fact that he has healers? Is that his secret sauce? Yeah, and that's all, folks. Yeah, needless to say, particularly I think the players on our team were raving at the end of this game about how the whole thing played out. Particularly Kiko's performance. If you just look at his score compared to pretty much everybody else, I think I'm the runner-up, 24,236. Sorry, long sentence name is the runner-up. But yeah, no one even came close to Keko. And yeah, let's just take a look at his kills. It's, how do you even explain that? Let's see. Yeah, he killed 1,350 units all by himself. Nobody came close. JBC got a little bit more than half of that, but other than that, nobody even got half of the kills that Keko managed to get during this game. And even to the bitter end, he was shooting up like a rocket in terms of his score, which is obviously being carried by his insane military score, which is even more of an exponential curve. It's wild. As his teammates dropped off, he was getting more kills than he was when he was fighting alongside them. But yeah, I definitely told everybody at the conclusion of this game that I would be covering it and posting it. So if any of you guys are here right now watching, definitely shout out in the comment section, and you can say that you were there when Keko freaking massacred 4 players at once until he finally had to give up. But yeah, remarkable performance. This is really like why this game is freaking awesome. Just the unexpected shit that can happen, and the you know, the level of there's really, like, compared to like a mid-level player, like when you see top tier players, and I would really, even though his rating's only in the 1,500 range, I really would, just based off of his performance in this game, put him in that league. There's really no limit to how well you can learn to play Zero AD if you are, you know, one of those gifted individuals who really can kill it. Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know it was a long one. I'm fucking tired. You can probably tell just by the way I've been talking and how long it's been taking me to search for certain words towards the end of this game, but it was so worth, really, like, because I was, like, very much, out of everybody on my team, I was pretty removed from the main action of the game, especially in the second half. Pretty much everybody was kind of defending the northern flank for the large middle chunk of the game. Everybody was working on defending the northern flank, and or trying to attack the northern flank, and I was kind of on my own in the south, just trying to mop up Tarzan and JD to a lesser extent. So I was kind of playing a separate game from everybody else. So I didn't really, when everybody was going crazy at the end talking about what an insane game it was, I didn't really, like, fully grasp it the way I do now after really going in depth and watching the replay and seeing things from a bird's eye perspective. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely, like, send me, if you have any games like this that just went freaking crazy, please email them to me. It's in the description. And like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that jazz. Yeah, I hope to continue having dope experiences making cool ass videos, watching crazy 0 AD games with all of y'all. Bye bye.